Diddy verdict, man. You know that was the news before, 4th of July, so everybody was like waiting. Um, that's me, my bad. The Diddy verdict though, bro. I just don't think that it's not the outcome, because I don't want to say the outcome that I wanted, but it's just something that it's just it's like a double edged sword, because we don't want to see a black executive that gave a lot to the culture go down,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, he was in a position where he destroyed his own legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he beat that woman. He created a whole environment where freak offs and prostitution was kind of considered normal, and drug use is considered normal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just something that I'm kind of disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
because my father didn't do that. My father just fought for his life. He
Mm-hmm.
may be stronger a couple dudes in our whatever, but he wasn't beating no women,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't create an environment where people weren't like they couldn't get a job somewhere. They blacklisted somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that with the whole Diddy verdict, it just opened the world's eyes up to how society is cooked, because people don't really have empathy for like the women like Cassie or Capricorn Clark, because they stepped up and shared their story. Um, Maybe it's probably because they got a lonesome amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cassie got a lonesome a lot of money, but it's still not normal just because someone received a lot of money that it's okay for them to be abused or treated a certain way, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just I like the Diddy verdict. I don't wish jail for life on him or anything like that, but he had a lot of opportunities to like keep his legacy alive. He kept a lot of things going. So I just don't really have any empathy for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think what he's endured in the last year is a big punishment within itself. If you think about that, you know.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy to ask that, because my pop's been in jail for
No,
10
but yeah,
years. And it's just like he been in jail for a year. Like,
yeah, yeah,
bruh, like, are you serious? Grow
yeah,
up, bro. You know what I'm saying? You was trying to orchestrate things.
yeah. That's true.
Like you purposely destroyed your own legacy, bro. While
Yeah,
my pops, his stories is more like his people turned on him, and he just didn't react the correct way to handle that business. He just
yeah,
tried to do it his way. So I'm not saying like he did the right thing either, but this was more like he ain't beating women. My pops is,
yeah,
you know, whooping niggas' asses and shit like that. Like,
yeah,
run that bread. What we doing?
yeah.
Not orchestrating freak offs and be like, yeah, let me set up this live porno. Like, that's sick.
Now I heard and I seen, but at one point, Puffy and Suge, they were boys, and like they were like rocking with each other, or at least had a mutual respect.
I'm pretty sure it was a mutual respect. I don't want to say boys, but like it was never a beef. It was
Yeah,
never an East Coast West
yeah, yeah,
Coast
yeah,
beef.
yeah, yeah,
It was always Pac and Biggie beef.
yeah, yeah.
That
Exactly.
that that was it. They got caught up in that, and I believe that's when like my dad's friend Big Jake. That's who he named me after. My middle name is Jacob.
Okay.
That's who he died in. He died in Atlanta, and I think that was due to like Puffy's peoples or whatever. So that's what created the little beef between them. But other
Oh,
than that,
oh, hold on. So the guy that died in Atlanta with that was with Wolf, right?
yeah, I believe so, something like that. Yeah, he
Yeah,
might be connecting it with Wolf. So
yeah, yeah. So that is he was name was Jake,
yeah,
and that's who you're
yeah,
named after.
that
Okay.
was the yeah.
And
So
now is he someone your dad grew up with?
I believe so. That was my dad's friend though. Good.
Okay, okay,
He was like Jake was a good dude. So
okay.
that's why my name is like a lot of history in it. I got
Yeah,
Suge, Jacob Knight.
yeah, yeah,
It was just yeah. So um that's why I only think the beef is about. That's why the Knights, we not beefing with the Combs or anything like that. We not
yeah,
like, hey, yeah, I hope he gets what he deserves. But
yeah,
as a father with daughters, and as a man who believes that women shouldn't get beat on,
yeah,
I seen that video. Puff got way too much to lose to be doing stuff like that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And then compared to my pops, it's like people hear myths. You know, we ain't never seen a video of Vanilla Ice getting hung over a balcony, but that carried on for over 30 years. Or
Yeah.
Suge killing Tupac, that carried on for so long.
So long.
So it's just like I'm the wrong person to look to be empathetic for it, because brother,
Ain't nobody had no empathy and sympathy for
yeah,
y'all. You know
for
what I'm
us,
saying?
yeah. So it's just what it is. And then, like, as an LA native, bro, I just feel like Puff created this division inside LA when he moved over here.
Okay.
So like people, like the industry was weird where people were just like they had to pick a side. It's always like that everywhere, but like out here, you would hear about dudes not being able to get into clubs, certain things. You had like club owners calling themselves. She don't even call herself Miss Diddy in LA no more. But you
What?
had, what I'm saying, you had like the
Yeah.
Diddy effect. So it's just like we couldn't get a job in the industry, you couldn't get any work. And that's the part that I don't agree why he was creating that kind of energy. Because you
Yeah.
have to probably be a part of a freak off, you have to kiss some ass.
Yeah.
And that ain't we wasn't doing that at Death Row. Like I didn't see my dad do stuff like that. He hired security. He changed
Yeah.
people's lives. He was for the people in the inner city.
Uh,
So I
do you know any ex bad boy workers or
other
besides
than
Other than
other than
Capricorn?
Capricorn Clark, nah, not too much, not really. I know that people had probably like go back and forth. Only other person I think of is his name is the artist. It's like TQ or something like that. He did a couple things. The verdict brought out a lot of like other artists and people's stories, like testimonies to come out.
Yeah.
But like society's so cooked that they don't know if it's a money grab or if it's like a story where somebody's being truthful and like, yo, this is reported abuse and that we gotta stop. I'm just against the whole blackmail type of situation where you like not blackmail but like blacklisting
Hmm.
where you work for a company, say you work for Puff, and then you don't work for them anymore, and then they have the power to be like, I'm gonna make sure you don't work anywhere else, and
Hmm.
then you wonder why people were like in
But
fear of speaking up.
now I'm starting to see, and it's kind of like backfiring for Cassie.
Yeah,
People are, people feel sorry for her, but it's also, they're kind of going hard on her. They're kind of looking at her as, you know, and and to her argument, and I can understand is like when you're in that stuck situation, you might want to even, fool yourself that you're into it, or or make yourself feel like you're more into it than when you really are, just
yeah.
to not make Puff, you know, feel a certain type of way. Because the more you feel uncomfortable, he can probably feel that vibe too. You know what I'm saying? But then again, she could have just been a stone cold freak that was super into it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe he just went too far.
Both things could be true.
You know.
Um, I think that what we do know is that like she was with him when she was young or 17,
Mhm.
and then she, stayed with him for that whole time. Um, Pretty much like that was her way of survival.
Yeah.
And like that that's why I think society's really cooked because they don't have any empathy for her because she received so much money.
Money. Yeah.
So when you received all that money, people were like, "Oh, she was with the free calls. She got what she wanted. Why y'all feeling bad for
Exactly.
her?" That doesn't mean that it's okay and gets a pass.
Yeah.
If anything, that was probably a good play. That 30 million probably saved Puff from getting more time
Yeah.
because they couldn't charge him about with those charges. She had the NDA. It was a whole settled. It already settled.
Yeah.
Can't bring it up. Only thing you can get them on is some prostitution and the other weird shit.
But they both just got sued by one of the freak off guys, and he's suing Cassie and Puff for giving them STD and just over. He says, I guess she made him, masturbate like to where his skin was peeling. So he's suing her too.
Yeah, and I'm not in a position. I'm not the person to decipher to say that he can't speak up and use his voice. If he's a
Yeah.
victim, he's a victim. That's their business. They created that.
Mm.
So I'm not saying anybody's innocent, but it's just more of like
Women's.
women's or people who are victims. You can't shun them or silence them because
Yeah.
then what are we? How are you going to prevent that from happening?
Yeah. Exactly. And they
Like
need our help.
they
What
need our help. If you like, that's why I kind of feel like the Diddy verdict kind of was like a slap in the face to women because what punishment is he getting from beating the hell out of this lady in the video? Maybe that's not what he's charged for, but like, dude, that is not okay.
But I think that's also the dispute of 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 this case is that he's a bad person, he's a domestic abuser, he's a woman beater. But is that RICO? Is that something to put someone in a jail for the rest of their life and ruin their life based upon being a domestic violent,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, which not saying we condone it, but it's like the prosecution did a terrible job by taking crimes of domestic abuse, but then try to parlay that with the, what I'm saying, with the sex trafficking, domestic, RICO, and just a whole big situation, which they obviously just failed, and
Yeah, I'm not the person that looks for people to go to jail for all of their life or for a
mm,
very long time, but it's just some morally, I can't have
yeah,
any empathy for that guy
yeah, yeah,
because that's just not right. Um, the other thing is, like we hear in Capricorn Clark's statement, she said that she received a call from Jimmy Iovine based off from Puff, like, don't do that, you're not gonna get this job. I think that's more of the problem. I'm not looking for the
yeah,
criminal parts. You know, if he's not if it's a freak off, that's a freak off. If that's what they're doing. I don't agree with it. I know it's that's not normal. Freak offs are not normal. Prostitution is not normal. But the way that the industry is ran, that needs to be regulated because
yeah,
people shouldn't be in fear or people shouldn't be put in situations where they can't grow unless they have to do something they don't agree with. You know,
uh-huh.
like sleeping with somebody or keeping secrets. I think everybody who played a part keeping a secret helped help this whole problem spiral into a bigger problem.
I
Where
think Jimmy is a seems like he's a guy that's a, behind a lot of mess.
you know it's a messy industry, man.
Yeah,
So I don't want to
like
put
Tupac being in jail and not being able to afford to get out, even though he can afford it because he's a number one artist, was kind of behind Jimmy. But Jimmy put the blame on somebody else, which when he explains it, it actually makes sense. Like but the coincidence is the reality is behind a lot of mess, sis Jimmy Iovine.
yeah, man. You know I don't want to put that on them. You know because there's no actual proof of
Yeah,
that. It's just it's tricky, bro. You know the industry just needs a
yeah.
lot of regulation.
But to his defense, he's kind of just a guy sitting in the back as the big player, and he has to always fix a bunch of mess that's pretty much coming to him. So it's not like
Yeah,
he's creating the mess. It's just a bunch of mess that he's really in charge of, and it's really his responsibility to always clean it up.
yeah, but is it really getting? There's a fine line between resolving the problem and then putting a blanket over it and then going over it
Yeah,
and leaving later on, decades later, it's coming up like
yeah.
people's stories and victims.
But I hear good stories like from your father. I hear a lot of stories of, you know, he fucked over your dad, but I also saw that they were very close, at one point, and
I
they
think
were a
he,
good team. They were a good team, obviously.
I think he's a real good chess player. That's the way I could put it. And you know, he knows how to play his players and anything like that. I don't know my dad's story. I don't know his story too much. Like speaking on Jimmy, I just know that their industry has to be. There's a lot of regulation because you just think of like from my perspective of like seeing the Drake and Kendrick beef, how like Universal is faking the streams and all that. There's a lot of
Mhm.
holes and there's a whole different world where the outside people can see, where the
Mhm.
fan is just like, oh yeah, they're big, they're huge artists, they're getting all this money, they're doing all that, and then and inside the industry, they're not making all this money, they're faking it, they're probably going to freak offs, they're probably doing all of this just to make it. So it's just it's something that we hear later on. Like you got Nicki Minaj saying that Jay Z owes her $200 million now
Oh, she did.
because she's had a part she didn't agree that she only got paid $1 million from title and all of
Wow.
that. So it's just weird. Like I think we will just see things more happen in time where people will probably lose more money or they have to change their lifestyle to like we don't know what the truth is or how the industry is ran. The industry is kind of constantly changing. It's not the same industry where my dad was in it with Death Row and
Mhm.
and those heavy hitters and compared to the 2010s where it's like good music and Kanye West to now it's just we don't really have any labels. It's just Universal
Yeah,
and Atlantic.
and a
You know,
bunch of artists, but they all got their own labels now. So,
under a
ev-
management
yeah, yeah,
company.
yeah.
You know, so it's
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, what do you feel about the? Do we ask about the sentencing?
nah. I don't. The thing is, I don't know if Puff is. I assume that Puff is going to probably do like 2 years, maybe 2 to 4 years max.
Mm-hmm.
He already has time served
For a year.
for a year,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm not wishing jail on that guy. If anything, he gets out, he cleans up his act, cleans up his mess, and just pray to God because only God is the judge.
Now, I just
Like,
saw an article today that they're saying that the prosecution is finna hit him with more charges, like between now and his sentencing. So this ain't the last of his legal battles.
yeah, there's something more to it. That guy did a lot that we just don't know. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm not wishing jail on that guy. It's just more like,
Yeah.
maybe this is your karma coming back for you. I don't know, bro. It's just
Do you think Puff is going to try to make a comeback, or do you think Puff is going to be like, you know what? I see how everybody treat me. Let me get the hell up out of here and maybe go abroad.
probably a little bit of both. He has kids to still take care of,
Yeah, that's true.
so like it don't stop. I think I would just say that he gave his life to God and just keep moving forward. The Knights ain't beefing with him. Just the Knights don't stand for men beating on women,
Yeah, that
and
part.
that's all. And I don't believe that freak offs are not normal, and prostitution is not normal. There's a difference between courting a woman with respect and you have intention, and then just paying for sex and being a trick. That stuff's not normal, and I think that society needs like holy water poured on them or some shit like that because like OnlyFans ain't normal. All this pornographic thinking, it's not normal. So we just have to like take a moment of look at ourselves and take accountability. I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody has to take accountability of what they played because they entertain these things. It's like Puff, he played a part, but also the people who was involved did the drugs with him, provided the drugs,
Yeah.
agreed with the sex parties. Um, Niggas agreed to put baby oil on baby oil and shit on each other. And shit. Like all that shit is just not normal. That was never about music. So same thing with society. They can talk about OnlyFans all they want, but if niggas stop paying for it,
Yeah.
then it won't.